Alrighty, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, May 9th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, summer movie season is here, and that means we got to bring out the big heavy hitters, the tent pole guests, as it were. So we're bringing out one of the big ones. The official kickoff to the summer movie season on the BO Boys is this man from the Direct podcast, from the Cinema Spending podcast. David Thompson is here. David, welcome back to the BO Boys.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to discuss this weekend. I saw Planet of the Apes already, and I absolutely loved it. So this is
Wow.
really exciting for me to talk about its box office because normally, I don't get to talk about a movie's box office performance, before it happens when I've already seen the film. So I am coming in with rose-tinted glasses, massive bias. I'm so bullish on this movie. I rewatched all of the recent trilogy, and I'm just so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I love to hear you just state your bias up front. Enough people do not walk out and say these are my biases before they then live their biases. So thank you for doing that. I mean, we talked about him a lot last episode, Harry Knowles. That's what got Harry Knowles in trouble, is he didn't state his biases up front. So I'm glad that David Thompson is not going to fall into the Harry Knowles traps here. That's good to see.
Now, David, how did you go about seeing this movie? Was it set up by the studio? Is that the situation?
Yeah, it was just an early screening. I got basically through my job with the Direct, kind of. I get a good amount of screenings. This one I was really excited for. It was a Dolby theater, which normally a lot of the early screenings typically aren't really in like the premium, the PFLs. PLFs. Oops.
PLFs.
Fuck it. It's a raw feed. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. And with that being said, like I was really excited for this specific movie to get one of those premium formats, whether it be IMAX or in this case Dolby. I would recommend this movie in Dolby 100%. It gives me a lot of, apparently it was written by the same writer as Avatar: The Way of Water, which I didn't know, but it definitely gives those similar vibes, and it looks fantastic. I will say, like this is one of those big budget movies, big studio movies that it's promising to have a lot of CGI, but it actually looks fantastic. Like it actually looks great. It was a really appealing movie just to look at beyond the story and everything else.
All right. I mean, let's just stay on it because this is the big one. It's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the big movie opening this weekend. That, man, we're only in the second weekend, but it feels like there's so much riding on this movie. It almost needs to not save the summer, but restart the summer after what happened to Fall Guy last weekend. I guess before we get into Apes, let's just get your Fall Guy take, David. Where were you when those numbers started coming in? What were you thinking when those numbers started coming in? How did you feel? Let's just get you from an emotional place when you saw that Fall Guy was underperforming so much. Hopefully you were not on the road, right? You didn't hear this over the radio while you were driving a car.
No, I think I was sitting at this very desk on Sunday and realizing maybe Ryan Gosling isn't that big of a star, because I actually, if I'm being honest, I actually kind of like the Fall Guy. It's super silly, but I genuinely think Ryan Gosling is like so charismatic in that movie and hilarious. Like, I don't know if you guys saw it, but
I did. It was fine. Yeah,
it's totally fine. Totally, like it's right down center, vanilla. But like I think, and I don't think Emily Blunt was well cast in the film. I think she's just kind of there, in my opinion. This movie doesn't let her shine in any way possible. It's all Ryan Gosling, which I enjoyed. And certain comedic bits got me really good, like the unicorn part really made me crack up and stuff like that. But when I saw the number, I was disappointed, but I couldn't say I was too surprised. And I think genuinely my response to I would say the reaction to that number is, I think if the Fall Guy wasn't in the MCU slot, the first slot for summer, like you just talked about, like Planet of the Apes needs to really not restart, not revive, but to just start the summer, because it really didn't feel like that last weekend whatsoever, in my opinion. And I think if the Fall Guy wasn't in that early May slot and it made the same amount, we'd probably be singing a different tune. That's just what I think.
Yeah. David, you actually, it's funny when you started talking about Fall Guy, you said, I actually kind of liked it. And there was mild shame in you saying that. And I think that's a problem now with this movie because of how it did. And people are sort of embarrassed if they even like it. And that's really bad for a movie. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to say, I loved it. You know, I love it. Like you said about this
loud
Apes
and
movie.
proud, right?
Loud and proud. And I understand why you do that, because Fall Guy has the whiff of a stinker, unfortunately. And that's why box office is so important, because this is a fun sort of popcorn movie, but it doesn't have that must-see thing. And people are going to talk about it the way you talked about it, with sort of that mild, okay, you know, I don't want to admit it, but it was good. It was fine, you know, and that's bad. That's bad for a blockbuster. This thing ain't going to be a blockbuster because of those sort of things.
Yeah. No. And the numbers have actually come in lower than what we reported when we went on air Sunday night, because we went on air, live on air, fuck it, it's a raw feed, and reported 28.5. The actual number came in at 27.7. So this is even lower than we thought. We'll get to later when we predict our top fives what the drop on this is going to be. But yeah, I think that word of mouth is going to be a problem, because people are now whispering praise about this movie. They're not shouting it from the mountaintops.
Yeah, like I am for Apes. And that's like, kind of the problem too, right? And it's like, if you're going to go see, I mean, I think the Fall Guy is playing on some premium screens, like that movie. I just see it on a normal screen. But for Planet of the Apes, I would see it on the biggest, baddest screen you can find.
Oh my God. See, that's what we want to hear. That's what a movie studio wants to hear. And I mean, that is what Apes needs. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, it's sort of, okay, well, I'll ask you, since you've seen the movie. So obviously no spoilers here, but is this a fourth movie in the continuation of that 2010s trilogy, or is this a not a reboot, but a fresh start? Like how connected is this to the ones that started with the James Franco movie?
Right. Rise of Planet of the Apes, which I actually love. I love that movie.
I love that one. I love the first two. And then Clayton and I had one of the worst movie experiences of our lives seeing War for the Planet of the Apes. We saw it in Times Square. It was a crowd that people were sitting there and confused that apes were in the movie. It was a very bizarre screening that tainted the movie for us.
They were disdainful. They were disdainful of the apes being in the movie. They were making fun of the apes when they were speaking to each other. And we were like, you know that this movie has apes in the title. There were going to be apes, but we digress.
They better not watch this movie. But with that being said, it's a great question, because that was one of the biggest things going in, where I loved the idea that this was going to be a film that is in the same universe, but generations down the road, like hundreds of years, basically. Okay. It's been a long time. And it honestly exceeded my expectations that were pretty high for how connected it is. It is completely new landscape in terms of like where we are in the universe, right? Like where we are in the timeline, because of what happens during that trilogy and how, especially at the end of War. I don't even want to give away spoilers for that, but essentially like everything that happens in those movies does affect this movie. And they do go over it at the beginning, so that I do not want to scare listeners off that are like, do I have to do all the homework? Is it the MCU thing? No, I do. I think you can go in with this fresh. I actually spoke to someone who was promoting the movie who hadn't actually seen the other ones, and was saying how she was basically explaining that she thinks it works really well as a standalone film. And then we saw it, and I think I agree. I mean, I got a lot out of it because I knew the history. So that's the thing. If you've seen the first three and you like those movies, I think you're going to love this one, because it's not the characters really that make an impact. It is, but it isn't. It's more of the philosophy and the characters, what they did on Earth, like what Caesar stood for, who Caesar was essentially, is still in this movie. And I think Wes Ball, who's the director of this one, I think played this beautifully to not only make a fourth film, right? Like, you know, let's make a Spider-Man 4 and it's the same thing. No, make a Planet of the Apes 4, but it's hundreds of years in the future. It's still deeply rooted in this universe, but is brand new characters, brand new, like, society, really, right? Like, it's a very societal based films to begin with, like kind of the struggle within of human and ape, especially the Dawn and War. And this really continues that because obviously the apes, they've been in charge for the last, however long. And you get all the ramifications of that. And it is expert world building, in my opinion. It really is fantastic for me as a fan of the franchise.
So again, not spoiling anything, but we are finally at the point where I guess we were in the Charlton Heston Apes, whereas this truly is the planet of the apes. The apes have been in charge for a long time. This is not sort of apes in the midst of taking over Earth as we know it. This is not the apes figuring it out. It's like, okay, apes have a history. Apes are teaching about ape history. Apes are running things. These are ape cities that the humanity are humans walking on all fours in this movie? Do we finally have humans with leashes? Are we going to see that? Because I don't think we saw that in the James Franco trilogy.
Not leashes, but
okay.
Basically, like if you know War of the Planet of the Apes and basically like what happens to the humans in that movie, there's a continuation of that where humans are not higher thinkers, basically.
Okay, great.
So, Pat, I just want to interject that I love that you are referring to the first three movies as the James Franco trilogy, because I'm sure the studio would love you referring to them as that. So, no, we're not Studio Shill, so of course we could do those sort of things. But
that's why they
of
set this movie 100 years in the future, because they wanted to be clear to audiences. James Franco cannot come back.
He's dead 3 times, 4 times over.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I need to ask you, David, about the Franco trilogy in the sense of generationally, because you are a young man. You are in your prime. And the first movie came out in 2011. Then you got 2014, and then I believe 2017, right? So
nailed it.
Thank you. We talk a lot about the sea change in movie going, the new younger generation, and what their franchises are and what means something to them. We're finding that Godzilla and Kong mean something to the younger generation. Where, the gentle minions phenomenon, that is Kung Fu Panda means something. Shrek, when the next Shrek comes out, it's going to be one of the biggest goddamn things to ever walk the planet, right? So
100%.
Yep. Mario meant something.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, and I heard David talk about Mario on his new cinema spending with guest Scott Mendelson. So I know he's a Mario guy. Mario means something. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So where, as somebody who's speaking for your generation, where did the Planet of the Apes, this Franco trilogy, where do they sit for you as in importance?
So in terms of importance, it's not as high, and in terms of nostalgia, let's say, as like something we just discussed, like Shrek or Mario. It's not like that childhood effect, but actually what it really is, people that are my age typically look at these movies and think of, honestly, like prime value, really quality films, where it's like, because in 2014 specifically, I was in high school, and I remember when that movie came out, it was like, this is really good. Like this is just a fantastic movie. You've got to go see it. It looks amazing. Like, and that's part of it too. I think it'll do nowhere near what James Cameron does with the Avatar movies, but there is something with the CGI where it's like, oh, this is like CGI you want to really get into, where you really enjoy the CGI. You're not poking holes in it like other movies. And I think that's really its main reputation. But it's also, with all of that, it's more niche for sure. It's not for everyone. And I don't think this movie is going to be for everyone. For me, it is longer. It takes a little bit to get going, but it was perfect for me as someone as a really big fan, and a really big fan of the ideas they wanted to attack in this movie.
So looking at that James Franco original trilogy, all three of them did really well, but the second one, the 2014 Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the second of the Franco trilogy, that one just went absolutely bananas. It opened to 72 million, did 208 domestic, 710 worldwide. And I feel like that is the one most will point to as their favorite. It's obviously the biggest hit of the Franco trilogy. War, the third one, then there was a dip, and that one had such high expectations. It only opened at 56, only did 146 domestic. So there was a dip there. And I do think that one was darker. That one was more dour, not as audience pleasing. So having seen it, which one of those do you feel that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes trends more towards? Do you think there's a summer crowd pleasing element? Like, and all three of those, especially the second and third, were dark for summer movies.
Yeah.
But does this feel closer to War in tone?
So in terms of tone, that's a great question. I would say it's closest in tone to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, because really with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, it's not a similar story in a sense, but we do get more of like the hey, it's been a while since something crazy happened. You know, it's it's much longer of a gap in this case, but you know how it from Rise to Dawn, it's like 10 years ago, you'll never believe what happened. In this case, it's like a long time ago. You'll never believe what happened. And you kind of just go from there, and you kind of can pick up where you sort of left off. But it does have a lot. It's totally unique because you are getting introduced to all these characters, but it's not that true origin like Rise was with Caesar, like as a baby growing up, and it takes place over all this time. And then really the whole point of that movie is just to set up Dawn, because then Dawn really becomes like, okay, this is going to be a Planet of the Apes movie, and War as well. So this one, totally unique in that sense. I'd say tonally it'd be most similar to Dawn, because War is a bit more. War's really sad. That's a really sad movie if you've seen it.
It's like, a tough sit. Yeah.
It's not crazy rewatchable. Dawn's my personal favorite, then Rise, then War, just in terms of rewatchability. And Kingdom, I'm excited to see where that lands, because it's fighting for that top spot, I'll tell you.
I mean, the smile that came on your face just from saying Kingdom, that really does say it all. This feels like, based on your review, and you stated your biases, so now what you say counts. It feels like a big, fun summer movie. The humans in this movie, let's talk about that. You know,
I was just going to ask.
The James Franco trilogy, of course, had James Franco. And, you know, some people want to call it the Lithgow trilogy, but he was also in that first movie. We, of course, know it as the Franco trilogy. There's no humans unless I'm missing a big TikTok star or something in this cast that I'm not aware of. It doesn't seem like there's a big human star. I mean, William H. Macy,
he's in it.
He's playing a human, or he's playing?
He's a human. He is one of very few humans. Yep.
Okay. So do we feel like the lack of a James Franco 2011 star is going to matter in this movie? Did this need somebody? I mean, the Jurassic Park movies, Jurassic World movies, they got Chris Pratt in there. You know, like, this movie didn't do that at all, which probably helped with the budget. But when watching this, did you miss human movie stars? Did you feel that missing that?
So I'll answer this in a few ways. So Owen Teague is the lead ape, Noah. He's our brand new protagonist, excuse me.
Okay.
And he is fantastic. Like, I mean, obviously he is an ape, but there is obviously the motion capture and everything, and that character is awesome, and he's very well performed, if you can even like grade on that scale with like Andy Serkis. So Freya Allan is from The Witcher. She is the lead human in this movie. She is kind of the I don't want to give any of the movie away, but she is really great. Now, is she a star? No. And I don't think anyone is going to see this movie for an actor, honestly. I mean, Owen Teague is he's a no-name, but now he is Noah in the Planet of the Apes movie. So it is interesting. That if I'm being honest, I loved the movie. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's this like philosophical Planet of the Apes film. I don't know if everyone's going to love it, and that might be part of it, because the human, this is like you mentioned earlier, like truly is a Planet of the Apes film. While Freya Allan's character May plays a very big part and a very vital role to the story, it's very predominantly the apes.
It's the apes. Okay. So yeah, because the third movie, I don't think had anyone super recognizable. The second one had Jason Clarke. So, I mean, even the James Franco trilogy was really carried by the
third
apes.
one had Woody Harrelson.
That's right. Yeah. Of course. Woody. Okay. So
one of the great value adds of all time.
Right.
Woody Harrelson.
The thing about this Planet of the Apes movie is from what you're hearing, the budget seems reasonable for this level of movie. I mean, I'm hearing the budget being what, 125 or so. I mean, it's basically Fall Guy budget, maybe a little more, for a movie that seems like it's going to have a lot more going on screen than Fall Guy did. And that's probably where they save money, because if they would have brought in a big star human, you get Mark Wahlberg to reprise his role in these Apes movies, and the budget's $200 million.
And let's talk about budget as it refers to, what's on the screen, because I think that's a pretty important distinction here. The fact that Fall Guy's budget was so high and you didn't see it on the screen is the problem. I'm not against high budget filmmaking if you see it on the screen. Dune is an example of that. Dune 2. When you look at that movie and you look at the budget, you see it on the screen. And I think if this movie is how you're describing it, David, and we're speaking off off camera about Mendelsohn, our tribal chief, who you had on your Cinema Spending podcast. He, in his new column, was talking about how beautiful this movie looks as well. So that is what people are going to be talking about. They're going to be his Substack. I'm sorry, it's not his column. It's Substack, and you should be paying to subscribe to it. You owe him a living, as we all know from listening to this podcast. But him saying that, I mean, that is the thing about this movie. That is what people are going to be talking about it. It looks spectacular. And with IMAX becoming such a huge chunk of the box office, that is the sort of thing that is going to get butts in the seats. You weren't hearing about Fall Guy looking spectacular. You were hearing it about how it looked like a Netflix movie. And that is not great buzz.
No, not at all. And I wholeheartedly agree. This movie, at the very baseline of it, it just looks great. It is fun to look at. And I saw it in Dolby, which helps for sure. But it's beautiful. I mean, it's so, to me, I'm going to throw something crazy out there. It's my favorite dystopian movie, period. Because I don't love these. So here's the thing, like, speaking of my generation, there was all these, we had the Hunger Games and we had the this and the that.
The Maze Runner movies by the same director.
Yeah. There was something else with what's that girl's name? Anyway.
Divergent. You're talking about
Divergent
and all
yes,
that. Yeah.
Divergent. Not a big fan. Dystopian. So this is dystopian in a very unique way, and I think in the best way, because it's very pleasing how they were able to do this. And I imagine they were able to save a little bit of cash because they had so many mock-ups and the same technology from the previous Apes movies for like the actual like faces and everything like that, because that just is like locked and loaded awesome. Nothing's like, I wouldn't say anything's a big improvement in terms of the apes from War of the Planet of the Apes, but go look at that movie. They look fantastic. I mean, Caesar specifically just looks legitimately real. And in this movie, it's the landscaping, right? It's like Wes Ball, the director. He by the way, he's directing the new Legend of Zelda movie for Sony. That is also a very big deal. Like, that is massive, and it was a big thing going into this film. Like, all right? Wes Ball also did Maze Runner. What's this guy got? What's it gonna look like? And from the jump, I can see Legend of Zelda. It's just the greenery, everything being like old, like railroads and buildings and boats, and how would they look hundreds of years in the future? Legitimately, how would they actually look? This movie shows that, and it is fun to watch.
So apes are at the center of why people are going to want to see this movie. Are apes especially hot right now because of the collab, because of Godzilla x Kong having success with his last two movies at the box office? I know they're different apes. I know they're a different universe of apes. I know we have not had that collab yet, Kong x the Planet of the Apes. But does Kong add something to people wanting to see apes at the box office this weekend? Are apes hotter than they've ever been, or do people totally differentiate those apes? What do you think, David?
That's a great question. My wife actually asked me yesterday if it was in that same universe. So some people might not know.
That's huge for these apes. If people like your wife think that they're all the same apes, and obviously your wife, incredibly smart person, worldly, knows everything about culture. If
Yes,
even she
absolutely.
thinks they're the same apes, then this is great for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I genuinely don't know. Like it's been interesting to see on the internet just like who does it's going to be, I mean, this is going to be so exciting for the box office because the box office tells all, right? You can't hide from the box office, and that's what I love about it because I don't know. Like the screening I was at was a mix of press and a mix of fans that were like standing in line for an hour to see the film. Obviously people are going to be pretty excited watching it, right? So that's like not really a great sense of the actual typical, hey, it's Saturday, hey, it's Sunday, like you want to go see the new Planet of the Apes movie.
Right.
So I think yes, but the bigger question of like, will it reach the heights of say War of the Planet of the Apes or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? I just don't know, because I think, if I'm being honest, I think with many fans and with many people out there, this movie has to prove something, because that is a lot of people think that is a really great trilogy, and maybe some people don't want to see the continuation of the story. Maybe think it's fine the way it is. It's definitely an unnecessary film if you want to like put it in that kind of context. So I don't know general audiences what they're thinking, but I do think when people go see this movie this weekend, the word of mouth will be positive.
Okay. Yeah, that's the, I mean, right now that is the most important thing. It'll be nice to see if there's a movie that grows through the weekend, if it's a grower, not a shower, if Saturday builds on Friday.
Totally possible.
And when you look at that original James Franco trilogy, the first movie had to sort of, even though the Tim Burton movie was a huge hit, people didn't like it. So the first Franco movie had to sort of combat the bad will from that. But then the second of the Franco trilogy got to build off of how much people loved the first Franco movie. And this movie now kind of has to build off of, well, people didn't love the third one. So it's got it. So it's an interesting ping-ponging in these apes movies of how they have to deal with what came before, much like the apes do.
You know what it's akin to, talking about this, is the Transformers franchise, in the sense of those Transformer movies obviously reached way bigger heights than these apes movies, but in the sense of had those movies that were center of culture, Buffa Bobo, and then the last one sort of tanked. They tried to come back with a more modest, smaller movie, Bumblebee, and then of course they did Rise of the Beasts. And that one is in that weird level of, well, did it make enough money for there to be another one? Probably not. There's the G.I. Joe attempt spin-off at the end, to tease that. Looks like that sort of is dead in the water. We'll see how that animated Transformers movie does. But I feel like this, and by David's reaction, I feel like it's going to do terribly because you were the prime audience for that.
That looks fucking terrible. I hated that trailer for Transformers 1.
Oh, wow.
So that's damning. Damning. No, don't apologize. I mean, you're a film goer, you're a critic, you're somebody who is, well, not, I wouldn't say you're a critic, obviously, but you're somebody who goes to see movies, has opinions that people listen to about movies, and that is important. But how do you think this movie is going to do in those terms? Do you think it's going to be able to, spark interest the way Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast really didn't do?
Yeah, my prediction, honestly, is that this movie opens fine. Opens like in line with, tracking, I guess you could say. Like, it's not going to overperform opening weekend. I think it's going to have legs. I think it's going to have surprising legs, because I think what's going to happen is people are going to say, which is not, here's the thing that I got to keep saying. It is very rare these days, and I think none of us think about it enough. It is very rare to be like, hey, go see this movie because it just looks good. It's pretty to look at. The Way of Water is the last time I remember that, where it's like, this is just like immersive. This is just fantastic. It just, it is a sight to see. It is something really that should be seen on the big screen. And I think very similar thoughts to this, much smaller audience, way more niche. But I think this is not a film that everyone necessarily needs to rush out and see this weekend, but go see it at some point, right? Go see it before all of its big screens are taken, because I think that definitely deserves that. So I think weekend 2 could be like, the hold for weekend 2 may actually end up being the most impressive part of its run.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, when we get to it next week, the competition in Apes the second weekend, I think, is going to not do very well. So that
Right.
could really be huge for the Apes hold. So, I mean, I think we'll get into our top fives now. I think the Apes, we're going to see this weekend. I think this is true. The Apes are kind of a forever franchise, compared to your Ghostbusters or your Indiana Jones or things that really were time stamped to a certain era. Maybe they did have a legacy sequel that did well later down, but the Apes are movies that start in the 70s. There was a Burton hit in 2000. There was the James Franco trilogy in the 2010s. I feel like the Apes are part of Americana the way the Big Ape is, the way Kong is. I just think that this is not a Ghostbusters thing where it's just for like old farts in a specific time period. The Apes are just, they're hot dogs, they're apple pie, they're baseball, they're here to stay.
Well, who's the Bill Murray of the Apes trilogy? I'm sorry, the trilogy, but the franchise. Who is the? There is, I mean, the original one, I guess.
If Heston could be reanimated, then it would be him. But
yeah, there's no Bill
until
Murray,
then,
so
yeah,
yeah, so that it's not reliant
yeah.
on one set of characters the way that so many other franchises are.
So our
Yeah.
man here has a hard out that we are going to meet.
Oh,
So
thank you.
let's get into our top fives. And then Clayton,
Top
I think there's a
five.
movie in the top five predictions that after David drops off, we might want to give a couple of more minutes to, because there is another opener this weekend that probably isn't as much in David's wheelhouse as Apes was. So I think me and Clayton could take that one after the fact. So why don't we give our top five predictions for the Apes opening weekend of Friday, May 10th. And I'll give our guest the option. Would you like to go first, second, or third in your predictions?
I don't want to go first. I'm gonna let some. I'll go second. Second sounds good to me.
I'll jump in then, and I will go first. I'll take the bullet here for all of us. I will be the Caesar. Number one, of course, is going to be the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and the tracking on this is what, around the 50s. What was your over under that you gave Scott Mendelson on the cinema spending? Did you get
50 flat?
50. I mean, I think it's definitely going to go over that. I think it'll hit 60. I think the PLF's thing is going to be enough. I think that we're going to see that just Apes are hot. They're not super hot. It's not going to open at 70, but I'm going to go 60 on that. Number two, it's going to be the Fall Guy, but I think the Fall Guy's drop is actually going to be pretty bad, even if the cinema score is good and the reviews are good. 27 million last week. I think this is going to do like $11 million this weekend. And
man, that'd be so tough for them. My gosh.
I think the number 3 movie is going to nip at its heels a little bit. The number 3 movie, Not Another Church Movie, I think is going to do $9 million. I think this is going to be so surprisingly close to the Fall Guy that Ryan Gosling, even though he's above this stuff, I think he's going to do a little bit of a double take when his assistant brings him the newspaper at the top 10. I think he's going to be like, what? So number 3, Not Another Church Movie, does 9 million. Number 4 is going to be Challengers. And then number 5 is going to be, it's going to be Godzilla X Kong, the collab. I think we're going to have, I'm going.
No Taro.
No Taro. Taro's going to drop like a stone, I think. Yeah. I think we're going to get a lot of people doing Apes double features this weekend. I think Kong's going to get a Planet of the Apes bump. So that's my top 5. So number 2 is our guest, David Thompson.
Okay.
What is your top 5?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going Planet of the Apes number 1, of course. I'll go a little under 60. I'm going to put it, just for fun, I will put it right in between War and Rise at 55 million. I think that's safe.
Right.
I think there is a chance it doesn't, like I said, I think there is a chance that we are going to see like a bad number, quote unquote, like in the 40s. And then it holds though. That's my thing. I think that's totally possible, but I'm gonna say 55 because I think like the reviews came out today. All the buzz is very positive. Like it's not like anything earth-shattering, but it's positive. And there is that element where this is a franchise people know, people love, and I think people are going to be willing to go out and pay for this movie. Number 2, I'll go with The Fall Guy. I'm gonna go at 14 million for that one. I don't think the drop's gonna be quite as bad. Like I said, I liked that movie. I'm kind of rooting for it. And it's so sad, my demeanor.
Yeah.
Like Clayton pointed out earlier, which is such a great point, but it's true. And here I am. Number 3, I'm gonna go Challengers. Love that movie. And I think more and more people are going to go see it. I think Zendaya is gonna keep posting Instagram stories or whatever she's got to do to promote it. And I think obviously I do think on Amazon, similar to Saltburn, it's going to do fantastic. It's going to be a huge streaming success. But I do still think there are people that are seeing this go viral on TikTok and Instagram and are like, we still got to go see that Zendaya movie. Is this the week? Hey, mom, what do you want to go see? Do you want to go see Planet of the Apes? Do you want to go see Challengers? No, you want to go see number 4 on my list. Not another church movie, maybe. I'll go number 4 with this one. I'd be surprised if it beats Challengers, but Pat, maybe you're onto something there. By the way, for Challengers, I would say for a number, forgot that part. I'd go 9 million, and then not another church movie. I'd go right under with about 8 million. Let's put that out there. Very curious, by the way, with not another church movie, how that's going to perform at all. Very interested. And I will go Taro at number 5. That is like the big, horror film, I guess, in theaters right now, if you even want to call it horror. I've heard kind of mixed things on the movie. I haven't seen it. But I'd say it's going to be at number 5. I'd say $5 million.
All right. Great. Love it. Now, Clayton's going to go next. Do you need to drop off right now, David?
I can listen to Clayton. I'm curious. And then I can bounce.
All right.
Yes. I will go fast, my friend. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, of course, slam dunk number 1. I am going to be the lowest of all of us, 49. I think this movie, like David said, I don't think that is terrible for this movie, because I do agree that it's all about the legs here. People are tentative about this summer movie season. They're slowly creeping back to theaters. We'll see what sort of takes off in the second weekend here. Number 2, I agree, Fall Guy. Going to have a fall. I think it's going to be over a 50% fall. It could be in the 60s. So I do think this movie is going to end up at 11. Number 3, I also agree with Challengers. I think Challengers is going to make about $6 million in its third weekend. Because I definitely think that this is a movie that people are going out and seeing. Congrats, MGM, Amazon, for keeping this thing in theaters, not pressing the panic button. This thing could be a sleeper that continues to make money throughout the summer. So stay the course. Number 4, not another church movie. It has church movie in the title. That is what's going to make this movie so popular with churchgoers. It says it's a church movie.
Well, you're missing the key word.
It doesn't matter. Not another. Okay. It doesn't. But that's just saying it's not just another.
Right.
It's not another church movie. It doesn't matter. When they see church movie, that is going to burn into their retinas. They don't care. It says not another. So I think that it's going to come in at 4.
They're renting the buses.
Yes. I think it's going to be close. I think it's 5.5. And then Taro, I do think, makes it to that 5th spot. I think it's probably going to make around $3 million. But horror, there's always got to be a place for horror at the theater, especially in the summer. Give these teenage kids someplace to go do their thing.
Whatever.
That I won't describe
whatever they do. So David Thompson is going to drop off. Thank you so much for being on here. Of course, the new episode of Cinema Spending just dropped with our tribal chief, the icon, Scott Mendelson. I've already listened. Incredible episode. Summer movie preview. So everyone go listen to that immediately. Anything else you want to plug, David, before you drop off?
If you enjoyed my, non-spoiler thoughts of Planet of the Apes, Monday's episode of the Direct podcast is our full spoiler review, which I am so excited to do. I'm not going to be able to because of this weekend, but I'd love to go see the movie again. But it is worth that to me. I am so excited to discuss it, really dig deep, there is so much just layered storytelling and philosophy and just allegorical themes that I am very excited to dive into on that episode. So the Direct podcast Monday afternoon, that's going to drop. And yeah, beyond that, thanks guys so much for having me.
Of course. So the great David Thompson, Cinema Spending Direct podcast. He'll be back on again soon. One of our favorites. Thank you for joining us, David.
Great job. Pleasure as always.
Let's get into this. Yes.
Not another church. But because now that David is gone, let's just say something about David.
Okay.
The future of box office podcasting is in great hands.
Yes.
Because we have David Thompson.
Yes. And of course, we've got junior intern Jack. We've got senior intern Christopher. We've got Danny Escamilaggi. I screen, you screen for the number 4 movies. These are the youngsters. But I mean, David Thompson, when it comes to the podcasting of box office, I mean, he is one of those that's going to carry the torch. Because you and I are not going to live forever. We're going to live I'm going to live a very long time. You'll be around.
TBD.
Yeah, TBD. But I mean, hopefully some more seasons of this show, but not forever for either of us. We will have a head in a jar phase of this show. That will happen, and it'll be seamless. And the listeners will love the head in the jar phase of the BO Boys. But even at some point, that'll end. Someone's going to accidentally kick the jars over.
That's how it always happens with the jars and the heads.
Right. So even that
heads in the jars. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And people will scramble. They'll chase the jars down. They'll try and get the mics back in the jars with the heads. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But eventually the jars with the heads will roll downstairs, and that'll be it. The show will be over. We won't be around. But David Thompson will still be there, and he'll be leading the charge. So it's going to be great.
Yeah. So about this movie now.
Yes.
Keep going on what your point was. The fact that it's called not another church movie. In your estimation, you think that means that people are going to interpret that as it's not a church movie?
Well, I think they're gonna,
or that it's making fun of church movies. Therefore, they don't want that.
I think that's it. I don't know if this is gonna be a movie that fully capitalizes on the church bus crowd, because it's not like the Naked Gun movies capitalize on the audience who loved 50s detective movies as who was going to see that movie. It's not the fan base of what they're parodying that necessarily is going to be compelled to see this because they love the original. But I mean, perhaps I would say that I don't think that the church bus crowd is going to be the crowd going to this. Yet somehow I do still think this is going to do really well. Well, okay. Do we feel like the church bus crowd is going to be the type of audience that wants to laugh at itself a little bit?
I think there's an element of the fact that this is aimed at Black churchgoers, I believe. When you look at who is in this film, Jamie Foxx, Vivica A. Fox, Tisha Campbell,
Lamorne Morris,
and Mickey Rourke, of course.
Mickey Rourke playing the devil, which is, if you're going to use Mickey Rourke, that's how to use him nowadays, is you have him play Satan.
And I think that there is a sense of humor in that community. There is a sense of playfulness in that community that would be okay with something poking fun at them, as long as it's good spirited in nature. This does not feel to me like a movie that is, we're going to nail these churchgoers,
Right.
It feels like, here's this sort of stuff that we all go to church on Sunday and this happens and blah, blah. And it's more like, oh, I can recognize that this might be a little bit ridiculous, but I still love it and believe in it. And if this movie is true to that, I think there's a place for it.
This is not Ricky Gervais's Not Another Church movie. You know, this is
No.
not a movie where
he's not having
he's
a
coming out.
laugh.
He's not having a laugh. He's coming out on stage with a pint of beer. Because I mean, come on, who else drinks?
No
No
one
one but
drinks.
that guy.
No
No
one
one but
no
that
one
guy.
drinks at an award show?
No, nobody. Just him. Just him. So this is not that. This is not Ricky Gervais coming out. And Clayton he had to put his hands over, and this is why you got to subscribe to the BO Boys on YouTube. He had to grab his Reagan movie 24 hat that Jeff Bach of Exhibitor Relations Co. sent him, because he cannot believe, thinking back to when Ricky Gervais used to bring a beer out on live television.
I mean, it's just like
amazing. Who does that?
Who does that? My
Yeah.
mind was blown when that happened. I was like, anything is. I was like Kevin Garnett. I was like, anything is possible now.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, it's a miracle. Like the Insane Clown Posse once said about refrigerator magnets. Ricky Gervais coming out with a beer on live TV. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
So this is not that. You're right. You're right. You have turned me around on this, because it's not a parody of this where it's fully snarking on it. And listen, we haven't seen this movie. We actually have no idea. But I looking just at this poster, which for the most part, my thoughts on this movie will be mainly gleaned from looking at the poster. When you look at what it's parodying, which are Tyler Perry movies, Tyler Perry movies are movies that gently joke about the stereotypes of the, Black church community. So you're right. And those movies do great with the church bus crowd. So I've already been turned around. The not doesn't matter. The not in this title is so much less important than it just saying church movie. So let's go. I want to take a look at something else that was a not another movie. Not Another Teen Movie in 2001, starring a young Chris Evans. That was a movie that was having a laugh about 90s teen movies. Your what's the Jennifer Love Hewitt house party movie, famously the
Can't Hardly Wait.
Can't Hardly Wait. So, but Not Another Teen Movie was having a laugh about those 90s teen movies. That opens a 12.6 movie. Do we think that there is any
million?
12.6 million. Do we think that there is any value in the IP of the Not Another Blank movie, franchise?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking that myself. I don't think so at this point, because as much as I'm a big fan of that movie, Not Another Teen Movie, I think is one of the best spoofs maybe ever made, if I'm being
Wow.
honest.
Okay.
It's a movie
So
that
you're
I
saying you're
own.
putting it at Zucker Brothers level.
I would say it's sub best Zuck. I mean, you can't put it in the same echelon as the first two Naked Guns, Airplane, Top Secret, those
Hot
sort of
Shots.
movies.
Yeah,
Hot Shots,
it's a next
number
tier.
one.
It's above your Spy Hards. It's above your Jane Austen's Mafias. It's above your Inappropriate starring Craig Robinson. It's above those movies. And it's above your Seltzer and Friedbergs.
Way above your Seltzer.
Yeah, Not Another Teen Movie is way above any Seltzer and Friedberg movie. Yes.
If we
100%.
were doing a tier list, that are so popular or at a time were popular on the internet, I would say it's in the A tier, not the S tier, which is the top tier. So, yes. Yep. But with that being said, I don't think that adds any awareness or box office bump to this.
Okay. Were there any other Not Anothers? I'm trying to think of those really low budget, even there's there's like sub Seltzer and Friedberg levels straight to Amazon, straight to Tubi type spoof movies, like the kind of things like Brian Callen would be the star of.
Yes.
Like, were any of those using the Not Another Blank movie convention? I mean, we could go on Brian Callen's a cursed IMDb page and check, has he ever been in a Not Another like Fast and Furious movie?
It doesn't. I don't think so. I think the only two movies that I can see that have that construction are that, when we're talking movies, are Well, it looks like there's not another sci-fi movie.
Okay, yeah. See, I'm telling you,
Not
there's a
not another movie. That's a real one. It has Vinnie Jones in it. This is
okay.
interesting.
So is that a spoof of spoof movies? I feel like at some point in my life, I do remember knowing that was something
Look at
that
this
existed.
cast. Michael Madsen, Chevy Chase, Vinnie Jones, Burt Reynolds. This was from 2014. Not another movie.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is a parody of parody movies. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
looking at the poster of not another movie, and it's Burt Reynolds sitting in a director's chair with his like hands behind his head, looking back. Vinnie Jones, there's a boom mic. Yeah, this is about the making of a parody of movies about movies, it
The
seems.
only review I can find on Amazon for the DVD says a $1 movie rates 5 stars with me. Let's hear it for the darn 100 pennies I just spent. Makes me want to yell when I get any movie for a buck. Yeah, I mean, really, this cannot be as bad as everybody says. So, more about the price of the movie than the quality of the movie. So, we can't speak to what the quality of that movie is. But again, I don't think fans of this movie are going to run out to the church movie because of the construction of the title.
Okay. Do you think that the failure that was not another movie will put people off of going to see not another church movie because now they feel like the not another blank movie is a totally ruined IP? I mean,
2014,
this is
10
a
years
review from
ago.
Nathan Rabin of the then AV Club. Just how bad is it? It's beyond dreadful. It's sub Seltzer Friedberg, if that's even possible. That last part definitely feels like a cheap shot by Rabin. I thought he was better than that, but apparently he's
Mhm.
not. So I don't know. I wonder if there's any lingering cultural consciousness of the not another movie starring Burt Reynolds and Chevy Chase that this not another church movie is going to have to overcome.
We'll see. I mean,
There's someone who's going to be looking at that marquee and they're going to say, after not another movie, I can't see another, not another movie for me.
yeah,
That's what
they're
someone's going to say.
fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. Wait, no,
Yeah.
shame on you. What a fool me once, shame on you. Fool me
Not
twice,
another
shame
Shame
on
Me
me.
Twice
Yeah, yeah,
movie. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you mention Stuttering John was in the not another movie?
Ugh, I didn't.
Stuttering John was in that. And yeah, wow, Stuttering John couldn't get that one to be a hit. So that was a cursed movie there. So I do think this one, Jamie Foxx is in this. Now, I would imagine Jamie Foxx is gonna, even though he's billed first on the poster, will have shot all of his scenes in less than an hour. I mean, do we think that is the most likely
Yes.
scenario where he played God in a green screen that was either on set of something else he was filming or in his kitchen?
I feel like God shows up on FaceTime in this movie.
Oh, that makes sense. On FaceTime that Jamie Foxx filmed on his own phone.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
But
course, he was reimbursed for the minutes, but I do think that he definitely shot it on his own time.
but you know what? He's on the poster. And in terms of getting people to theater, that's all that matters, whether he's only in there from phone footage shot in his rec room or not.
Mhm.
So I've been seeing that the screen count for this is like around 1,100 theaters.
Mhm.
Um, I think this is going to have a high per screen average. I think this is going to do pretty well. I mean, I predicted 9 million, which maybe is bananas, but
I that's firmly in the bananas camp for sure.
okay. Um, yeah, I just think Jamie Foxx and Mickey Rourke have never been together on screen, and I think that's a big pairing. And something that'll be, I think, interesting to see is I don't know if he has, but does Tyler Perry acknowledge this movie this weekend?
That's a good question.
Does he give it a bump?
I mean, best thing is he comes out and says, I don't want you to see this movie. And then I do think there'll be some controversy, and controversy is good.
Okay.
Because it'll be on people's lips and in people's minds.
So that is the other big movie coming out this weekend. I'm so excited for our Monday results episode to see how the apes do, to see how this Not Another Church movie does. Are spoof movies back? I mean, someone who's looking forward to this, I'll shout him out right now. Listener of this show on Twitter. He's always mixing it up out there. Big comedy fan, the great Bill Brasky on Twitter. I saw him tweet. We speak your name. I saw him tweeting about this because he's a comedy guy. He desperately yearns for a time when big comedy movies were in the multiplex every weekend. And he pointed out, this is where we're getting. This is the big comedy movie that's coming out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? For Bill Brasky's sake, I hope this is a hit because that guy, I know he gets a happy feeling like we all do, but especially him when a comedy does well in theater. So
yeah,
I'm going to bet he goes see it. So comedy fans who are just starving, maybe they go see this movie this week.
That's the other thing. I mean, that can't be understated either, that it is a market that is not being served.
Yeah. So we will see. Let's see.
Now,
is there anything? Go for it, Clayton.
Well, Pat, I do feel like, it's not a movie conversation, but I do think I would be remiss as a Gen Xer to not mention the passing of Steve Albini, who is, of course, great producer, provocateur, musician in his own right, and passed away suddenly. Big loss for my generation. Kirk Minahan, I know, is listening. Well, I'm just, because I was trying to give you some perspective, because you're like, who is that? Because I was texting you about it. And it would be if Jack Antonoff passed on for your generation, or someone like Dr. Luke. That's the feeling that you would have, that I and Kirk and Jeff Bach are having right now with the passing of Steve Albini. So I would just like to say, all the Gen Xers out there, I know how you're feeling, and, we'll get through this, because this sort of thing is going to be happening more and more. So yeah, that's all I have to say. And Pat, you can chime in with whatever you want to chime in from a different generation, what this person you just discovered exists means to you. And, maybe do a little bit more research, listen to a little bit more of that music, and then come back next episode and really be able to be speaking educated about this subject.
Do you think that Kirk Minahan cares about Steve Albini? He's a Bruce guy. He doesn't care about Steve Albini. Come on.
He's got to be a big black fan. We know this.
So R.I.P. Steve Albini. I don't have to go on and on to prove my bona fides like other people do. So I will just give a classy R.I.P.
Great.
So that's all I'll say there. Do we want to go over any emails here? I'm just looking to see if we have anything that is pertinent immediately to this weekend. Let me see. We had a Boots on the Ground about the Fall Guy. Just very quickly. Hey guys, after a very disappointing opening weekend for the Fall Guy, I had a very interesting experience this morning in my local theater. Just for context, I work as a bartender, so I typically go to the theater on weekdays for daytime showings. I have sat in many showings. I'm the only person in attendance, or there's few others. I saw the Fall Guy at noon on Monday, May 6th, and the theater was packed. It felt like a Saturday night viewing. I've never seen so many people in one theater during the day like this. The crowd was loving and laughing throughout the entire film. There were Gen Z, Gen X like Clayton, and millennials like myself and Pat. Ha ha ha. And everyone was loving everything about this movie. Question is this a sign that Fall Guy could have serious legs, or is this showing an outlier in the grand scheme of things? Also, everyone went crazy for the Twisters trailer. Much love, wanna be oh boy. Connor, I mean, we both said it. I don't think either of us are high on the legs for Fall Guy, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we want this. We love Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
We want this movie to have giant legs, and I don't feel it, but maybe there will be a rallying around. But I do think the way David Thompson on the show spoke about the Fall Guy in hushed tones, that is, I think, more the feeling that's in the air.
Yeah, like when I you put your finger in the air and you feel for the wind and ain't nothing blowing, you know, once in a while, maybe you have a quick puff, but this ain't a gust. It just doesn't feel that way. So I think that could be an outlier. But always, thank you for the boots on the ground, as always. Boots on the ground, the more we get from different places this summer to really see the landscape. I mean, and we've been having so many great emails, so many great interactions. I mean, not just from regular listeners, but newbies, new wanna be boys, wanna be girls, wanna be people. So keep it coming this summer season. We're all in this together because this is a big one. This is the, post Marvel summer movie season, first one, and this is big. So we all got to help each other out, figure out what's going to be big, what's not going to be big, and how Hollywood can really listen to us and say, okay, these are the movies that work and these are the movies that don't.
Yep. Just a couple other quickly. This is one from a few weeks ago, but wanna be oh boy Jason talking about King Kong presenting the Academy Award. He says, since Kong speaks sign language, I 100% think it would rule for them to have Kong sign the introduction part of a category, perhaps for sound. Obviously, have a human co-star has to read the card, but it would be very cool. I agree. It would be great to see King Kong on stage. Big year for the apes.
Have
And
Kong sign the whole broadcast. I mean, I think that is a great idea. I mean, who was that from?
that was from Wanna Be Oh Boy Jason.
Jason. Yeah. That's a spectacular idea, my friend.
Yeah. Let's see quickly a email from an OG, Adam from the Stacks. I mean, this guy's been with us from the beginning, and he will be with us in our head in a jar phase for sure, guaranteed. Adam from the Stacks.
He must be loving my hat.
So Adam from the Stacks says, Lord of the Rings re-release in June. The Lord of the Rings extended editions remastered are being released as Fathom events in June. Film 1 on Friday, June 8th. Film 2 on Saturday, June 9th. Film 3 on Monday, June 10th. This could take a hefty bite out of any other nerd movie playing that weekend. Lord of the Rings is nerd catnip, specifically the first film, Fellowship of the Ring, will likely do well. Adam from the Stacks. I mean, you know what? After what we saw Star Wars Phantom Menace episode 1 do this weekend, I think we gotta keep in mind these re-releases of giant classic movies, especially as Adam, and man, I know he said it with some venom in his mouth. Nerd movies. These nerd movies at the box office getting re-released. Yeah, they'll make some coin. I think he's right. So that opens the weekend of Bad Boys 4.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be some eating into that. And then obviously, I think the hype for that movie is so low. But speaking of nerd movies, I mean, this summer season is pretty low on things for the dorks and the nerds. I guess you could say Apes, but Apes is more of a thinking man's, like it never came off as super nerdy to me because those movies have always sort of been just movies that everybody goes see, like, I don't know if there's actual Planet of the Apes nerds. There's nerds for everything, but they don't seem the predominant people who see those movies. So they're an underserved market. So when you look at it that way, that's why the Star Wars, the first prequel, did so well. That's why these Lord of the Rings movies are going to do so well. Now it's a Fathom event, which is interesting. So we'll see how that pans out. They should have just done full release regular in theaters.
Yeah,
but
especially after they saw what Star Wars did this weekend.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that is something to think about. Absolutely. Like now they're an underserved market all of a sudden. because they get Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's sort of it, right?
Yeah. So maybe it'll be a big weekend for the nerds in June. So we'll see.
Poindexters will be eaten up there.
Yeah. Let the Poindexters cook. So I think those are all the emails we'll read right now. So send us your emails at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. We got an email that we'll read on our next week's weekend preview from Wannabe Oh Boy Max about John Krasinski's If, with a prediction there. So get us your emails about this weekend, about the Apes results, and get us your emails about your predictions for next week. If comes out, The Strangers, Day One, or whatever that's called, Strangers First Kill.
Stranger Dangers First Kill, Strangers 1.
Yep. So that all comes
3.
out. That the first of the trilogy, the James Franco Strangers trilogy, begins next week. So get us your predictions there. The BO Boys Podcast at gmail.com. Of course, read the Substack. Wannabe Junior Intern Jack is back with the Substack. Great article this weekend. Him today breaking down the weekend predictions for Planet of the Apes. See what he has to say. Of course, follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod on TikTok and Twitter X. Wannabe Senior Intern Christopher finished a week of finals, which means he finished a week of partying and missing his finals. We know that's the case. And he's back. He is running the social media, the vertical videos. He's running that. And we gotta have Senior Intern Christopher on an episode soon to get his take on the end of his, I think this is junior year. We got to see how the college year went for him and get his summer movie take. So look for that. Wannabe Senior Intern Christopher. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Blah blah blah. Love the show. And then of course follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to the BO Boys YouTube channel so you could see everything. You can see the hats that we are wearing right now. Very important. Earlier in the show, when Clayton grabbed his head like this, when we remember that Ricky Gervais drank beer on live television.
Who does that?
Who does that? So you got to subscribe to the BO Boys live, the YouTube channel, to see Clayton in disbelief at Ricky Gervais's antics.
Just such a ballsy move.
So ballsy. Yeah, I mean the thing about it is
the balls on that guy, and to say that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, only he would say it. Only he would say it.
No one else.
And here's the thing: you couldn't say that today. You couldn't say it today. Absolutely no way. You just couldn't.
No,
you couldn't. So go to the BO Boys YouTube channel, and I mean, Clayton, I don't think there's anything left to say. I think that's it.
There can't be.
No,
there can't be.
No.
Except for until next time,
we'll smell you at the